Well, hello everybody, good evening and welcome to part 2 of dealing with difficult situations. We did part 1 back in December, and a huge part of why we decided to break it into 2 parts was because we asked you to submit questions in advance of the last session, and it became clear that there were certain topics that lots of people wanted to know about, so and that warranted kind of a session of their own. So in this session, what we've tried to do is address those issues. I'm just going to show you the, before I get on to more of the ins and outs about the webinar, I'm just going to pop the Slido slide on for you just to encourage you to join in with the discussion. If you could go to slido.com, enter that code, and then we're going to test it out in a few minutes just to make sure it's working. I'm going to ask you some quick fire true or false questions about the code to see, just to check it's all working, and a bit of an icebreaker. So what we are aiming to do is basically very similar to last time. We're going to look at some scenarios that some veterinary surgeons have recorded for us, and they're all recent graduates, and they're situations that, as I say, lots of you have expressed an interest in knowing more about. We are going to then have a discussion afterwards, and I hope you will join in that discussion, whether by putting comments in the chat box or by just saying hi and kind of saying it out loud on camera. That would be great. And then I will take you to the relevant points of the code and supporting guidance that you might find helpful when you're, if you find yourself in a situation like that in your own practice. A huge thank you to the veterinary surgeons who recorded the videos for us. We are hugely grateful to you, and we couldn't do it without you. So a huge thank you very much for that. And the last thing to say is that the topics that we're going to be discussing in this session is well, hopefully they're applicable to all areas of practice, whether you're kind of small animal, farm, equine, or whatever. But there were, if you missed the first session, there were some farm and equine specific scenarios that you might want to go back and look at if that's your area of interest. But hopefully you'll find that these topics really apply regardless of the area that you're practicing in. So I hope you will find them useful. Just to give you a flavour of where the work I do fits within the college before we get started. So I head up the standards and advice team. We are a team of 6, soon to be 7. We have 2 advice officers, 2 senior advice officers, and a team leader. And we deal with, we run an advice line and an advice email box where veterinary surgeons, veterinary nurses, members of the public, or any other person who has an interest and ask questions about the code, the guidance, can ask about ethical situations, and just get a little bit more information about, the kind of standard side of veterinary practice. We support the work of the Standards Committee, and the Standards Committee of RCVS Council, who are responsible for drafting, reviewing and amending the Code of Conduct and supporting guidance. So we support their work, and we work with them to make sure that that's all happening. To give you just an idea, for those of you who are not so familiar with the Code of Conduct and the supporting guidance and how it all hangs together, the Code of Conduct is high-level principles. It is very light on detail. It is just the essential kind of the essential obligations. The supporting guidance is more detailed. It expands upon the code, and it kind of clarifies and gives more information and sort of tells veterinary surgeons how they might be able to comply with their code obligations. So that's what those 2 things are and how they work together. So I think I can now move you on to, I probably should have showed you that slide before, but yes, the 3 case studies we're covering today are euthanasia, breaching client confidentiality, and unexpected outcomes. We are going to then deal with some other frequently asked questions, and they're mainly to do with medicines because we haven't dealt with that in one of the scenarios, and it is an area that we do get a lot of questions about. And then we are going to ask you for your questions, so you can submit those in Slido, I think is how we'd like you to do them, so we can keep an eye on them. So we're going to try and use Slido now. So I wonder if you can all, I hope you're all able to use it and it's working okay. So you can vote true or false. Veterinary surgeons are expected to respond to emergencies within a set time frame. hopefully you can use Slido to respond true or false to that, whatever you think is correct. How are we doing on responses, Emma? I can't see them. Okay, hopefully if I go to the next screen, it will work. Oh. I'm not sure what's happening with the Slido, whether it's not working or whether something's just gone wrong with the presentation, but I'll take you back to okay. So veterinary surgeons are expected to respond to emergencies within a set time frame. That one is false. You can get there as soon as is practical or deal with the animal as soon as you're able to, but we recognize that sometimes that's not always practical. You might be dealing with other things. So true or false, veterinary surgeons are not allowed to charge for prescriptions. Let's see. That one is false. Veterinary surgeons are allowed to charge for prescriptions, as you will all know, working in practice, but it's a question that we get asked often. Are they allowed to do that? And the last one is usually vets and vet nurses should not disclose any information about clients or their animals to third parties. I'm hoping that Slido might start magically working for this one.
Mary, I think
I'll just tell you.
I think your presentation isn't in the correct mode, so I'm just doing it manually from the back end. So we've got eight responses so far on that one.
Okay. Okay. Should I go? Should I go?
Yeah.
Okay. So that one is true. Obviously, usually vets and vet nurses should not disclose any information about clients or their animals to third parties. But as we will discuss in this later in this session, there are circumstances where you might feel it's necessary to breach client confidentiality.